Hello, this is Nachinji Irene Kaewe coming from the Domestic Tax Department, and I'm here to tell you about the deemed VAT and VAT processes that are handled by URA in regards to procurements that qualify for deemed VAT and VAT exemptions as provided for in the VAT Act. In this presentation, you're going to find out what is the legal basis of these provisions, who are the beneficiaries that qualify for these exemptions, what to expect from the new process, what is entailed in the project activation, what are the obligations of the beneficiaries, and the demo. Deemed VAT provisions. We have section 24(5) of the VAT Act, which deals with mining and petroleum operations, supplies, taxable supplies to mining and petroleum operations, as well as section 44, second schedule, part E, paragraph 5 of ECOP Special Provisions Act. Who are the beneficiaries of this? We have petroleum licensees, mining licensees, ECOP Limited, ECOP Level 1 contractors. But please note that this excludes supplies to subcontractors and suppliers to licensees, that is the petroleum and mining licensees, as well as supplies to ECOP Level 2 contractors. We also have section 24(6), which deals with supplies to contractors executing aid-funded projects, as well as section 24(7), which deals with supplies to ministries, departments, and agencies of the government of Uganda. So the beneficiaries for this are aid-funded project contractors, and I really echo back that these are contractors who have gotten contracts with the government of Uganda through the different ministries, departments, and agencies, as well as government ministries, departments, and agencies executing or implementing aid-funded projects. Please note that this excludes supplies to subcontractors and suppliers to contractors. We also have VAT exemptions, and these ones are in line with the Vision 2040 of Uganda, and they are located in section 19 and the second schedule of the VAT Act. These special exemptions are only for strategic investments which meet the conditions that are stated in the Value Added Tax Act. We also have excise duty exemptions, and these ones are located in section 4 of the second schedule of the Excise Duty Act, and it's still in relation to strategic investments, and it is specific to only construction materials that are excisable. This also extends to ECOP Special Provisions Act, which provides for excise duty exemption. From that detail, you can tell that the beneficiaries of VAT and excise duty exemptions are strategic investors who meet the conditions stated in the law, and these persons who qualify will only qualify upon getting a VAT or excise duty exemption ruling from the Commissioner, Domestic Taxes. So what is the current process? The process involves validation of procurements that qualify for deemed VAT and VAT exemption provisions of the law. It is currently a manual process where letters are issued to the beneficiaries as well as the suppliers. Also, IFRIS configuration is done at the different stations. However, for this process, it's initiated by a formal letter from the beneficiaries or the suppliers to the beneficiaries. So what are we bringing on board? We are bringing an online process which is only initiated by the beneficiaries, and this will be available effective 1st March 2024 through a web form that will be in the IFRIS accounts. What should we expect as taxpayers? You expect IFRIS project activation for qualifying projects. What I mean, the projects that meet the conditions that are stated in the law, as well as email notifications to the taxpayers, and all applications will be processed online through the IFRIS, through IFRIS. So before I continue, project activation ideally means that we configure your project on IFRIS so that you're enabled to make applications online. That will be the first process. That will be the first step of this process. So if the project is project activation for a new project, what do I mean by a new project? This is a project that hasn't interfaced with us. This is a transaction that hasn't interfaced with us before the automation. It is going to be considered as a new project. If it is an MDA, which is ministry, department, or agency, they will be required to submit the following documents to Commissioner Domestic Taxes before procuring any qualifying supply for purposes of that project. They will have to give us the signed and stamped funding agreements, work plans, and approved budgets, as well as the details of the signed contracts, purchase orders, call-off orders for purposes of that project. So this echoes back to the ministries, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Energy, and any other entity that is handling an aid-funded project. You'll be required to submit this information first physically. The same spirit is for contractors executing aid-funded projects, that at the beginning you're supposed to give us the full contract, signed and stamped contract, bills of quantities, or their equivalent. We have acknowledged that some contracts are design and build. We have some contracts that only have material schedules and scope of works, but they don't have bills of quantities. So its equivalent should be submitted. We have technical drawings, as well as commencement of work certificate, especially for construction projects. The other beneficiary to light are the mining and petroleum licensees, who will be required to submit their license that they acquire from the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, as well as annual approved work plans, programs, and budgets. This is in the case of petroleum licensees, that their work budgets and plans are approved by Petroleum Authority of Uganda. Another beneficiary to light is the ECOP Level 1 contractor. And for one to be an ECOP Level 1 contractor, they must have a contract with ECOP Limited, or they have a purchase order or a call-off order or a framework contract. So those details will be required before we activate the project on IFRIS. Strategic investors. These are only the categories, as I had explained, who have gotten a VAT exemption ruling from the Commissioner Domestic Taxes. So upon submitting this ruling, your investment implementation plan and budget and any construction documents, you'll be activated on IFRIS. What happens after activation is that you'll be able to apply for your procurements through the IFRIS account. So for new projects, as I've explained, these are projects that have not interfaced with us during the manual process. However, we have those that are ongoing. That means you've gotten a confirmation that your project qualifies for exemption or deemed VAT, or we have a case that you've already purchased some materials already and you've been benefiting from the facility. For ongoing projects, all the mentioned beneficiaries, that is government ministries, departments, and agencies, that is ECOP Limited, ECOP Level 1 contractors, petroleum licenses, mining licenses, contractors executing aid-funded projects, you all be required to make a project status declaration via URA touchpoint under the option of IFRIS configuration. On top of this declaration, you accompany a progress report and interim certificates where applicable for the qualifying projects to enable e-invoicing from 1st March 2024. This is a sample of a declaration and the details that may be required. You may need to, in case of an aid-funded project, the implementing ministry, department, or agency should be noted. In the case of licensees, you have to inform us about your zone, the zone you're handling, ECOP, the purchase order or contract you're handling. Give us your TIN, the project cost exclusive of tax, financial project progress. This means in case of a construction project or any kind of service, the payments you have received so far on that project is a financial project progress. But physical project progress is the actual work you have done on site. That is inclusive of what hasn't been certified. Project start and end date. Who is the project manager of this project? Their contact and email. This is to enable us to process these applications on time without having to look here and there for the specific contact person for each project. As it has been identified, you may find a company having 5 projects and having 5 project managers for each, having a project manager for each project, which counts up to 5 different project managers. So for all the project activation activities that will be handled in IFRIS, upon validating your submitted information, qualifying projects will be activated in IFRIS and the beneficiaries will receive an email notification. From that point onwards, you'll be able to apply for the procurements that qualify for deemed VAT or VAT exemption or excise duty exemption. As I'd explained, other email notifications that you'll get is upon submission of an application. Upon returning an application is where your application is incomplete and we're requesting for information or clarity, expect a notification. When your application is processed, meaning either it's rejected or approved, you get a notification. And even at invoice issuance under the facility, you will get a notification. So as a taxpayer who may be handling this, we have very many key players. We have the contractors, we have licensees, we have government ministries and departments. We also have suppliers. So they all are in this group of taxpayers for deemed VAT and VAT exemptions. So for the beneficiaries, as I'd explained, these are the recipients of deemed VAT or VAT exempt supplies. And those I had listed down, those are ministries, departments and agencies of the government of Uganda, contractors who are executing aid-funded projects. They got contracts with the government of Uganda. We have ECOP Limited, ECOP Level 1 contractors. We have upstream licensees. We have mining licensees. So in these beneficiaries will be required to apply via IFRIS accounts for the qualifying procurements, and they are supposed to attach supporting information. What is the supporting information? If you're applying for insurance, we'll need the insurance policy. If you're applying for materials, we will need the pro forma invoices or quotations or purchase orders. If you're dealing with a service, we expect a service contract to be attached. As a beneficiary, you're supposed to explain and notify your suppliers that explain and specify to the suppliers the project to which that purchase relates to, as well as acquire IFRIS commodity codes from suppliers at point of procurement. These are the supporting information required: signed contracts, insurance policies, engagement letters with professionals, that is in regards to audits. We have lease agreements. We also have local purchase orders, call-off orders, or any equivalent. Any document that can prove this procurement will be considered. However, when it comes to ECOP Level 1 contractors, you may need to attach a procurement approval from ECOP Limited. How do the suppliers play in this? That they will have to provide IFRIS commodity codes to the beneficiaries as well as unit measures for those particular procurements, especially when it comes to goods at point of procurement. When you're signing your contract, when you're getting a local purchase order, when you're making a quotation for this customer, you'll be required to give the IFRIS commodity code as well as the unit measure that you're using in your system. Also, at point of invoicing, you are required to make e-invoicing on a project-by-project basis, because the approvals, the applications, and all that will be done on a project basis. So also invoicing has to maintain the same methodology. What is the process? As I explained, if it's a new project, you have to do a written declaration of the project. If it is an ongoing one, what you can see in red, at that point, you're going to submit your project status declaration via Touchpoint. Then upon project activation, the applicant can make application for any purchase, which is forwarded for verification to the case officer, which is reviewed. After reviewing, then approval or rejection. And then the decision notice is submitted to the applicant. So on the screen, you can see before configuration, this is a normal IFRS account. However, after configuration, after stock management, you will find deemed stock exemption management. And under that window, you can either apply as well as see what you have purchased under the different facilities. Please note that no beneficiary can apply for procurements that exceed the project cost. So when you're making your declarations, especially for the ongoing projects, please be keen on what you submit as your project cost. As well as no supplier will be able to invoice any quantities or amounts that exceed what has been approved in IFRS by the URA staff. So a sample of the error in terms of a supplier, when you exceed, the error reads the amount or quantity of goods or services has exceeded the project remaining value of deemed VAT/VAT exemption, and you cannot invoice. However, when it comes to a beneficiary who has applied for procurements that exceed the project cost, the amount exceeds the present remaining value of the project and cannot be submitted. So whenever approvals will be made, your project cost will reduce. And therefore, that is why please be keen on what you submit as your project cost. And please be keen that all the procurements you apply through this system are sole and exclusive for this project and have a cost that has been accounted for. Another thing to note is that we know that 1st March is soon, and we are also aware that letters have been issued and will still be issued until 29th of February 2023. However, kindly be informed that any items that you do not procure by that date, you'll be required to make an online application for those items, accompanied with a reconciliation report. What do I mean by reconciliation report? You will state for us the IFRS commodity code, the item, the unit measure in the case of a good, what was approved on our letter, what has been issued by your supplier, and what is the balance, and against what invoice, which is in this case we'll be interested in the FDN because it's a unique identifier for our invoices, and submit that through the online process. So if I can give an example, if it's commodity code, then the item is cement. It could be tons or bags. Maybe the approved quantity was 100. What was issued was 60. And then the balance is 40. We expect you to apply for the 40 within the new system. So in a nutshell, that is what I can inform you about our new process. For any other clarifications, you may contact us via the emails that have been displayed on the screen. Thank you.
Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.